Hi guys, I'm coming to you from the USC Upstate Gallery at Chapman Cultural Center. If you guys are looking for a great place to view art for your formal analysis, the galleries at Chapman are an amazing place for you guys to turn to. Not only are all of these galleries free, but they are open a wide variety of hours. Just check the Chapman Cultural Center website, and they are right across the street from the George Business School. So for those of you taking classes over at the George, this is a really easy place for you to pop in and see some amazing art. Be sure that if you come see art at the Chapman, you cite the correct gallery for where you are viewing the piece. So I'm currently in the Upstate Gallery, which is right next to the ticket office, but over on the other side of the lobby is also the Spartanburg Artist Guild Gallery, and then if you continue down the hall is the Spartanburg Art Museum. Upstairs there is also some work in the hall by an abstract expressionist named Karl Plansky. If you do talk about any of that work, then you are viewing that in the Chapman Cultural Center Plansky Gallery. But just be sure that you know where you are, that you're looking around you for cues to identify those places so that you can be as specific as possible when doing your formal analysis. Remember, this is not a research paper, so you do not need to go online to write a biography about your artist. The information that you should be using is info that you have learned in your text. So it's going to be those keywords that you're using to talk about art, and you're also going to be using the things that you are seeing. So you're going to be using those terms to talk about what you're looking at, and you're going to be using information on the gallery tags to talk about what the piece is made of, identify the medium. So you are talking about a piece of 2D art, so that's probably going to be a painting, drawing, or a print, maybe a collage. It's important for you to know what that is, so be sure to look at the gallery tag when you come to see whatever show it is that you are seeing. You will notice that if you come to this gallery, there are not tags next to each piece. So next to this piece, there's actually a number on a pin. It's the number 2. So if you come in the Upstate Gallery, this is something that a lot of exhibits do in order to, create a more minimal flow, not having as much text on the wall. But usually if you see numbers on the wall, and they do this in the Harley Gallery on campus also, that means there's a list somewhere in the gallery that you should be looking for. So I have the list in my hand. I found this up by the door when you walk in. This exhibit is called Laurie Isom Commonalities, and it's on view through October 4th, so it's a great timeline as far as your project goes. And because this has the number 2, I'm going to look for the second piece on the list of works. So this piece is titled Portal, and it is acrylic on canvas. The artist made it in 2022, so it's a very recent piece. Sometimes titles can be a really good indicator as to the narrative content of the piece. So when I look at this work, which I now know is a painting, because I have looked at it and I can see that it's made of paint, but also because I've confirmed that here on the tag, I see a figure that is being portrayed multiple times on the canvas. So what we see here, and this is how you want to start your formal analysis, is just tell me what you are looking at on the canvas. I'm looking at a house with green grass, and I'm looking at 4 figures that all appear to be the same woman. The figure on the lower right of the canvas is in black and white, while the other figures are in color. And it appears that it's the same person who is sort of walking around this yard and maybe doing some self-contemplation. The circle that she is holding, I would say that maybe that's the portal that she's referencing in her title. So we have a lot of narrative that's happening there. It's important when you talk about the work whether to acknowledge whether it is representational, realistic, abstract. I would say that this piece is representational, and that the depictions of the figures, the house, the landscape are all pretty realistic. So the figure especially is depicted with a great deal of realism. her skin, her hair. I feel that the artist has created the illusion of texture there. So when we're talking about texture, we're talking about two different things. The artist may have like layered paint really thick or used materials to create physical texture that you can touch, which obviously we wouldn't touch the artwork. But the artist may have also used tricks of the trade to create the illusion of texture, visual texture. And I would say that Miss Eisen has done that very effectively here, and that, you know, the hair, the skin, it all feels like it has that realistic texture, even though it's the smooth surface of the canvas. But she's also used different techniques to create texture in the grass, the brick, the roof, even the trees. Another thing that the artist has used is perspective. So when we talk about perspective, we're talking about tricks that an artist can use to make certain things look closer and other things look further away. So this figure here is larger than the figures that are in the background, but we can assume that that woman is the same size because it's the same size woman. So she is farther away here, but we know that because she is smaller. We have a full-size house here. It's a large house. The woman fits in the house. We see a very tiny home back here. We know that that house is farther away through that use of perspective. We can see another structure back here, which is also small. So already we've talked about realism, perspective, texture, and then you could also talk about sort of like these use of different kinds of brushstrokes. We have some brushstrokes here in this portal that are a little bit more expressive. And even though we're talking about realism, we are still talking about a degree of fantasy, because the artist has created this scene where her subject, this woman, is sort of looking at herself through this portal. So it's also important to identify your subject, who is this central figure, but you can also maybe identify the content. And when we're talking about content, we're talking about what the piece is about. So I think there is a sense of self here being represented, and content is like open to the interpretation of whoever is looking at the piece. But I think that she is maybe like examining nostalgia. For me, it sort of feels like she is going back to a childhood home and like remembering where certain things have happened. You know, over there was where Timmy broke his leg, and you know, in here I remember Grandma putting the star on the Christmas tree. For me, I do get that evocation of nostalgia. So those are just some different things to think about. You could also talk about color here. The color seems very important because the artist has omitted color from this main figure that is sort of the main place where our eye goes, and then has utilized pretty vibrant color in the rest of the piece. And that does feel like a pretty purposeful omission to leave out the color here. It wasn't just because she ran out of paint. So if you were talking about this piece, I would say like that's a really important thing to talk about. So just a sort of like breaking the ice, you know, a tip of the adventure, I'm talking about artworks. Be sure that when you enter the gallery, you choose a piece that you are excited to discuss. Remember, this is not a research paper, so you're not having to do any like book report type research for this. You shouldn't need any citations because you are simply writing what you see with the vocabulary that you are developing. Remember to find information about the piece before you talk about it. So if you don't see the artist's name on the wall, if you don't see the gallery tag somewhere on the wall, look around the space to find it, because it will not be excused for you not to include it, and that information is probably readily available to you somewhere. Remember to identify the medium, talk about just what you're seeing right off the cuff when you're looking at the piece, and then guide us through it using that terminology that you are learning in class. I hope this was really helpful for you guys. Let me know if you have any questions about certain terms, what they might mean. Remember that not all terms will make sense to discuss with every piece, okay? So if it's like fully a smooth piece with no texture sort of alluded to, why would you talk about texture? So just be sure that you are discussing things that are relevant to the work that you have chosen. And again, just let me know if you have any questions about places that you might go during certain hours to see work, and I hope this was helpful. Have a great week.